Yes. Great. Okay. Yeah, good morning. Good morning. For those of you who are tuning in and joining me, my name is Alice Herndon, and I am so glad to be with you this morning. You know, we are in a time where we are continuously figuring things out. And I was talking with one of my mentors on last week, and she said to me, there are going to be a lot of people who are going to want to start business, and they are going to need you to help them navigate through that process. And as I thought about it, I realized that I had received more phone calls than normally about how do I start a business. And so I wanted to make sure that I created some type of informational session that would allow you to start business, but start business accurately. A lot of people have opinions as to how you should start, but I've worked very closely with Legal Services of Eastern Missouri, as well as other attorneys. And so I am not an attorney. However, I realized early on in my career, I was doing a nonprofit application for someone. And what happened was they sent it to an attorney for review, and they ended up paying this attorney thousands of dollars. And I'm like, wait a minute, do I get a cut? And so I realized that that wasn't going to happen, but I knew the effective steps. And so today's conversation that I'd like to share with you is to legal startup of a business. That's what we're going to talk about, the legal startup of a business. And I want to make sure that you are properly informed as to what steps to take when you're starting a business. And so many of us have side hustles. We know we like to make those cakes that our family members are very desiring probably right now. But I really want you to think about, or you may have some type of um, gifts that you started making while you've had some downtime, or even you may have been donating things to other people at this time and thinking, perhaps I should start a nonprofit. So regardless of if it's an LLC, a limited liability corporation, sole proprietorship, or a nonprofit organization, I want to make sure that you start business before you start business. Okay. So today's conversation is start business before you start business. So let's get off into it. So, what do you need to start business? A lot of people will ask that question. So, for those of you who are listening to me, type in the name of your business, but also type in the response to the question: what do you need to start a business? And a lot of people will say a website, a lot of people will say business cards, a lot of people will say supplies. Well, I want to give you a list. And so, if you would grab a sheet of paper, screenshot what I'm going to share, or take some notes. Pull your phone up and just take some notes while I'm navigating through this conversation. Okay, you ready? Hashtag let's grow. Okay. So, some of the things that you are going to need in a business: you're going to need a business plan, okay? And not everyone really wants to do a business plan for whatever reason, okay? But I will say you will need to write a business plan. You want to get business assistance and training. And so that's one of the things why I am utilizing this platform, to make sure that I offer you some assistance and even some training thereafter. We've talked about social media. We've talked about having our documents properly prepared. But for those that are looking or seeking to start a business, this is the checklist. These are the top 10 things that I want you to have when you're ready to launch your business, okay? So yes, you're going to write a business plan. You're also going to get business assistance and training. The more information you know or the more knowledge that you have, the better off you are going to be when you start your business and continue to be successful in business, okay? You're going to choose a business location. Well, in the past, one of the things that we would look for is a brick and mortar. But now we're utilizing social media as a platform and creating those different elements that's going to allow us to actually reach our target market. So when you choose a business location, let's just think about it going forward as being something of a virtual component. And then the option two would be a physical location once we've come off of COVID-19, okay? The fourth thing that you'll need is a little bit of moolah. My friend says moolah is money. So financing your business, is this something that's going to require you? Is this a business that's going to require a huge startup cost? Is this something that you're going to need a computer and your internet only? Was this a business that's going to require you to have certifications? Is this a business that, you follow what I'm saying? So think about all of the things that you will need to start your business and begin to write those things down. The fifth thing is determine the legal structure of your business. And we'll talk about that. And so the top three that people, or even the top two, but the top three is normally a sole proprietorship, a LLC, which is a limited liability corporation. You can do this as a single entity, or you can do this in partnership with two or more people. The third is a not-for-profit organization, or NPO. 501c3, people will normally say, but people also turn it around and say 501, 50c31, but it's 501c3, okay? The sixth thing that you will do is register your business name. Or what is the name that you will be doing business as? Normally you see that reflected as DBA. The seventh thing is get a tax identification number. Number 8 is register for state and local taxes. That could be through your city hall or things of that nature, as well as obtain business licenses and permits to support your business. So you want to follow your state's guideline through your Secretary of State's office, which is SOS, right? Whatever the state acronym might be, .gov. It has all of this information that's out there on the website, and it's really there to help guide you that you can be successful. Obtain business licenses and permits and certifications. So as there are minority business owners, there's which is a MBE, or WBE, which is a women's business enterprise. You might also want to look at if you are a foodpreneur, having Safe Serve certifications to support you as well. And then the last thing is understand your employer responsibilities. Okay, so these are the top 10 things that you will need to get your business started. The next piece is, what kind of business are you? And a lot of people don't really know what type of business they are. Because you have a website, because you have business cards and things of that nature, you think that that's okay. But actually, I want to go back just one step. If you notice, I highlighted 3 things in yellow. Determine the name of your legal structure of your business, register your business or the name that you're going to do business as, and then the third thing is get a tax identification number, which is also referred to as an EIN or employee identification number. I often say this, and it's only because people don't know, but you cannot get a social security number before the baby is born. You have the baby first, then you get the social security number. It's the exact same thing in business. You determine your legal structure, you register your business name, and then you get your tax identification number. So what kind of business are you? That was the question. And so let's talk about the various types of businesses that we're going to discuss today. There's sole proprietorship, there's partnership, there's corporations, S corporations, and limited liability corporations. The top three, or the top two in this area, would be sole proprietorship and limited liability corporation. Even if you decided to look at an NPO or nonprofit organization, that would be considered incorporated or a corporation. Okay? So those were the business entities. And these are the commonly used small businesses that people normally register for. The first is sole proprietorship. This is a business that's owned by one person, a single person. Nobody else has any influence in the business whatsoever. Okay. Now, partnerships is a single business where one or more people, they share the ownership. And this is where it can get really touchy, because you will need to identify who can make the day-to-day decisions, who will be the person that's going to be responsible for the business overall. So it's nice to have a partnership, but you also want to be able to identify how you will start business and how you will end business. In business, I say that because there are times where people have outgrown the partnership and they will need to go on to something else. There needs to be something that is identified that will help you clearly state the way we will depart from one another. So partnerships are also important. The third is limited liability corporations, or LLC. This business structure is where you can pass through taxation, and I'll talk more about that, of the partnership or sole proprietorship, or the limited liability is the corporation. Sole proprietorship, I'll talk about some pros and cons. Partnerships, I'll talk about pros and cons. The same with limited liability corporations. I'll also share on those pros and cons. Sole proprietorship. Sole proprietorship is a business owned by just one person, nobody else. You are in business for the duration to the life of the owner. What do you mean? I'm glad you asked. Only you. You will be in business as long as you are alive. Or if you are going to pass the business on to someone, you will need to identify that in your corporate documents, and that's part of your operating agreement, okay? Unlimited liability. The sole proprietor is responsible for everything, every single thing of the business. Anything that goes wrong with the business, anything that goes right with the business. This person can also be regarded, when you look at taxes, legal suits, and things of that nature. And so this person also reports the business income and expenses on their personal individual tax income. Okay, so you will use a Schedule C for that when you're filing your taxes. Okay. Sole proprietorship. What are the pros? What are the cons? Okay, so some of the things are: you pass through taxation. It's easy to form, it's easy to maintain. You file the taxes right along with your own documents. So as you file your personal taxes, you'll also file the business taxes as well. The maximum flexibility for the owner. So This means that you have full control. I don't have to ask for permission and I don't have to ask for forgiveness. But remember, everything rests solely on this sole proprietor. Now, some of the cons, because we have a lot of sole proprietors that they do business, but they may not have documents that are properly in place. What tends to occur, it's not often, but what can happen is it's difficult to receive investments and you have unlimited liability. Again, everything comes to you. Everything rests on the shoulder of this sole proprietor. So those are the pros and the cons of sole proprietorship. Partnerships. So partnerships are general partnerships. Partners are all personally liable for any legal action and debts that occur within the company that which the company may be faced with. So if someone does something in the company and someone didn't authorize it, all of the partners are responsible for the legal activity of the organization. The same thing with the income. All of the income is divided, but this is where it gets sticky because you have to identify the roles of the partners, who's responsible, and how you will be able to divide any particular income and any additional benefits for it, okay? Unlimited or limited partnerships. Limited partnerships limits the liability and input with the management decisions of the partners. This limits the limits depends on the extent of each partner's investment. So what happens is someone may decide to put, you need $10,000, okay? You need $10,000, but someone is only capable or able to invest $1,000. That means 4,500 will be divided between the other two partners, and now you have to show what the limited partnership is for the person who only invested that $1,000. Okay, so when you talk about partnerships, partnerships are great because the more that can pool monies together to get the business in place and have it financially sound, great. But you also have to have documentation that's going to be put in place to show the limited partnership and how it is divided amongst the partners. So what are some of the pros and cons? The pros, it's easy to form. Once again, it's easy to create and easy to maintain. You pass through taxation and it's a shared financial commitment. So this is where the partners are able to divide out the income for the business as well as claim that information on their taxes as well as the business owner. And as long as you have documents that are updated and that outline how that is done, the shared financial commitment should be fairly easy. Now, just like there are pros, there are also cons. Cons are the joint and individual liability. You could have someone on your team who doesn't really do things the way that you would normally do them. This is why it's important to set the standard up front when you're looking to do a partnership, that you can identify who's responsible for this, who's responsible for contracts, who's the secretary, who's the treasurer, those types of responsibilities. Who's going to maintain the documents for compliance? Those things are very, very necessary and for the survival and the sustainability of the business. Now, the cons. If the person dies or leaves or withdraws, you have to have things that are put in place that you can clearly identify how will that look once I've done the work, okay? And again, it's easy to form. Because it's easy to form, it can be good. And because it's easy to form, it can be bad, depending on how you do your documents and the compliance pieces that go along with it. So the next piece that I want to talk about is the limited liability company, your LLC. No personal liability. You can pass through taxation, so you can claim the monies in your taxes and show where it's done. You can also do no stock certificates, no board is needed, no directors, no officers. All of that is optional for your limited liability corporation. It's easy to form, and the forming is done with your articles of organization with the state. If you do it face to face, the current cost is $105. If you decide to do it online, it's $51.25 in the state of Missouri. However, it does vary from state to state, the cost. So keep in mind, you can start this business, there's no liability, right? And I'll talk about the pros and the cons. You can pass through taxation, you can easily form it. You don't need a board, you don't need directors, and you don't need officers. If you decide to have a board or officers, those things are optional, but they're definitely not required. It's owned by the members. So it's owned by the members or the manager, which is you. So one person can start a LLC, or two people can start, two or more people can do an LLC as well. You can have members or you can have a manager, but it's owned by the members. It's easy to adjust and change the operating conditions. So this is where an operating agreement comes in hand. You have to have that operating agreement, especially once you have formed your LLC and you want to go to the bank if you have more than one member. So if there's two of you, you will need an operating agreement that clearly identifies who's who in the business, because the bank will also want to know that. Who is the signer? Who's the responsible person? Who's taking the lead, right? Because you don't want to set yourself up that you didn't govern those documents, and then later on down the line, you're faced with a critical challenge. The LLC, or limited liability corporation, offers protection of personal assets from a company's debts. What do you mean? I'm glad you asked. So what happens is, having a limited liability corporation prevents someone coming directly to you as the member or the owner and attempting to sue you for whatever reason. I say that because it's limited liability. This is where you separate your business. Personal business, business, ABC business. Your personal business, you do have a separate banking account for this LLC. ABC business needs to have its own business account. That means no cash app that goes to your personal self, and you don't want to have to be responsible or remember to transfer it over to ABC business, okay? So limited liability corporations can protect you from your personal assets from a company's debts. So if the company is not performing well, no worries. It doesn't affect you personally or individually. It only references the company overall. Now, keep in mind that even though you're going to start this business and open a bank account, you are still, as the individual, responsible for, you're still responsible for all the finances, lines of credit, loans. You are the guarantor or the guarantee, the person who's going to guarantee that the loan or the line of credit will be paid back. But when it comes to legal obligations and things of that nature, or suits that will be pressed against the company, The LLC protects your personal assets from anyone coming directly at you. Whereas for a sole proprietor, they can come directly to that person, okay? So that's the difference. LLC is the way that you want to go. Okay, so here's some practical tips for the LLC, the limited liability company or the limited liability corporation. You avoid piercing the corporate veil, and I just talked about that. It protects you from any court decisions and things of that nature that holds the shareholders or the directors liable for whatever thing. So any debts is only in the name of the company. Okay, so avoid avoid piercing the corporate veil. That's what you want to have done. You will need a written operating agreement. I've shared that. So it's required by law when there are two or more members. But you can also I also strongly advise having an operating agreement, how you do business, how you make your decisions, how you do your finances, how you will dissolve in your operating agreement. Okay, so those are the things that are going to be required to make sure that you're successful. So now let's talk about for-profit versus nonprofit. Now, I often hear that when people think of nonprofit organizations, they think that nonprofit organizations are not allowed to make money. That's not what that means. You can make as much money as required to run the organization as needed. The other thing with having a nonprofit organization, it now allows you to be eligible for grants, donations, where people can get a tax letter at the end of the year, or if they make a donation, you make sure you supply your employee identification number so that way they also get credit for making donations to the organization, okay? So you can make money, you can have donations, you can also have grants that are available to you in nonprofit organizations, and you're also eligible to have program services through that nonprofit organization, okay? And we'll talk a little bit more. So for-profit versus nonprofit. For-profit is no federal or state tax exemptions. A lot of people feel as if they go into business, the first thing that they want to obtain is a grant. That's not what for-profit organizations do. That's not what small business owners do. So if you're looking to start a business, don't look for a grant if you are a sole proprietor or an LLC, unless there is a foundation running some type of program that says that we will invest in you, but here's the requirements and here's the obligation to be part of this organization or membership. That's the only way that that can work, and it will be forgiven. Nonprofit is formed to obtain a specific purpose and for the common good. So I normally ask the question when a person says to me that they're interested in going into business, why? What is it that you are going to do? How are you going to bridge the gap to allow the service or the program or the product to be something that you can continue to do? If it's something that you're doing only for a small amount of time, don't do it, because it's just a side hustle or it's just something that you find fun. But if this is something that you're planning to continue and repeat and allow it to be repetitive over and over, Then you want to look at, let me do an LLC or a nonprofit organization. The second piece is the for-profit is formed to conduct a number of business activities, or I spelled that wrong, so in my rushing, and a number of business activities. That's your for-profit. Nonprofit, profits must be raised. You have to solicit people who are going to donate to your cause, people who are willing to contribute, grants or foundations that have eligibility that you find yourself meeting the criteria. So you're going to take that money, put it back into the nonprofit itself, so that way you can continue to move forward. For-profit organizations, you can distribute monies amongst the owners. So if there is a bonus that you all did exceptionally well and you want to reward yourself and say, I think we did $50,000 above our goal. So let's reward ourselves by doing $5,000 per person if there's 3 people, okay? Excuse me, please. You can do that with an LLC or a partnership or a corporation. However, any monies that you receive in the nonprofit organization must stay within the nonprofit organization. No individual owns a nonprofit organization. It may be your idea, it may be your passion, but any monies raised, any monies donated to belongs to the organization, and you have to identify and outline those stipulations, how you are governing that nonprofit organization to make sure that if you're paying someone, here's the 1099 or here's the salary through the 941 that you're going to be paying that person. Or if you're purchasing supplies, so you want to be able to outline that budget, but also show where the income that you're getting is being reinvested back into that nonprofit organization. You are required to pay taxes. For-profit organizations, LLCs, sole proprietors, corporations, you are required to pay taxes on property owned by the company. If you own a vehicle, you pay taxes on it, LLC. If you decide to purchase equipment, you own it, you pay taxes on it. So when you go to the store and they say there's XYZ taxes due, you pay those taxes. Excuse me. Nonprofit organizations. Nonprofit organizations, not only once you file with the state that you are operating in, you must also file federally through the feds, through the IRS, and secure your 1023. A 1023 is a tax exemption form that you must complete to show that you are operating as a nonprofit organization. It's for a specific purpose, and it's for the common good of the community that you're serving. That profit that you will get from that organization, again, is only used to go back into the business, back into the organization. You can also use monies to pay employees, but you have to have the job description. You have to have the salary outlined. So all of those things are very important and necessary for the sustainability of your business. Continuing on, profit versus nonprofit. Donations are not deductible for donors to your LLC. If someone decides to give you money, You want to have a document that clearly outlines this is a gift to the business, no loan, no investment, no repayment, no penalties, no interest, okay? That's for your LLC. However, for nonprofit organizations, you can be exempt from paying sales tax and the use of tax, property taxes, anything, as long as you are a qualifying 501c3 or tax exempt organization. So that means that you would also, not only would you have to apply federally for federal tax exemption, you'll also need to apply locally in your state for tax exemption as well. Once you've done that, then any purchases you make are also owned by the organization, not the individual, the organization. For profit, all of the assets belong to the business owners, okay? However, anything that you purchase for a nonprofit belongs to the organization, not the individual. Donations are also tax deductible for any donor. So if a person gives you $50, that's tax deductible for them. If they give you $10,000, it's tax deductible for them. And so you want to be able to show that you are a 501c3, you're federally exempt, sales tax exempt, so that way anyone who contributes to your business and or organization, they too can reap the benefit by saying, this I donated to a common cause. For profit. If the for-profit is dissolved, the profits are liquidated and the proceeds are distributed amongst the owners. Dollar for you, dollar for you, dollar for you. Okay. Two for you, two for you, two for you, right? So it's really good to know that if you decide to dissolve the organization as an LLC or corporation where there are two or more partners involved, you have to have that operating agreement that clearly states how the dissolution will take place. Nonprofit. If the nonprofit organization is dissolved, the remaining profits that you have in your bank account does not go to the individual. It doesn't. It's actually set up that you can donate it to another not-for-profit organization. That also means that any equipment that you have is now required to go to another nonprofit organization. Okay? All right. So I hope that this made sense, because a lot of what you need is at your fingertips, and it's available for you to continue to research and understand what it is that you want to do. Go to your Secretary of State's office and you can read some documents that are out there. The other thing that I would say is that you can like, share, and follow me continuously, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions for you. I hope that today's information made sense. I love working with small business owners, but I also want to make sure that I set you up for success. Feel free to DM me. I'm also going to check and see if there's some questions here online that I might be able to respond to. But it's really something that people are going to be doing right now. People are going to be trying to figure out, what might I do? What do I need to do to continue to be supportive in business? Or I've been doing this for so long. I think I now want to continue to start a business. It's okay. DM me. I'm happy to support you. I'm happy to answer any of the questions that you might have. I hope today's information was helpful for you as you seek to start business before you start business. Thank you. That is my time, and I hope